please do sit down, and I just wanted to say a few words of welcome to the President of France. So, bonsoir, Monsieur le Président. Soyez le bienvenu à Bikaner House. And I'll just say give you a very short introduction to him, and I'll do it the French way, because in France they look at the invitee and say, this is what you are. So, President Macron, you began your life as a brilliant student going to elite universities like Sciences Po, where a lot of our students here would like to go to Sciences Po, and then to the École Nationale d'Administration, or ENA, the National School of Administration, where several French presidents, including your predecessor, went. After you did that, you started life in public service. And then, 4 years later, you left that to join a bank. You became a private banker looking after lots of people's jolly good money. 4 years later, you left that and went back into public service. And then you joined the French ministry at the behest of François Mitterrand, and you became a very young minister for the economy, finance, and digital data. But then in 2012, you decided, no, I've got to devote myself to greater public service or enter into active political life. So you quit, and you formed a political movement called En Marche, which roughly translates as onwards. And that was in 2014. And in 2016, you beat Marine Le Pen from the extreme right-wing National Front to become the youngest president in the history of France, and you were aged just 39 then. So, welcome. Here you have, the best of of Indian students who would like to become French students at some point, and they will be asking some questions. But before that, if you'd like to say something to them, or if you'd like to plunge straight into questions, that's for you to decide. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the President of the French Republic, Monsieur Emmanuel Macron.
Merci beaucoup, Madame. I think I understand that everybody speaks and understands English, so let's do it in English, and I can take French questions if you have, if some of you want to speak in French. So thanks very much. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to discuss with you and have this direct exchange. I don't want to make a long introduction. I just want to say that the relationship between our two countries is a long-standing one. I mentioned that, and we mentioned that with Prime Minister Modi a few hours ago, referring to this pastory, and I'm accompanied by a French delegation, I think, which perfectly represents how rich the relation is. You have intellectuals, ministers, and people involved in publishing and editing. You have some chefs in gastronomy, you have researchers, you have politicians, you have people involved in fashion and creation, in cinema, in culture, so different fields. And that's for me very important, and obviously economy. It's just a sort of, in a nutshell, the core relationship. But for me, we are at the beginning of a new momentum between our two countries. And we will probably discuss about that. But we are two countries where culture, identity, relationship with myth is extremely important and structural. And at this point of time, there is a huge change in the current global environment. New threats with terrorism, risk of hegemony, and in the same time, you have a sort of a beginning of a dismantling of the global order made post-World War II. And we can revert on that if you want. And I think our two countries have a very special role to play. And that's, for me, the core of the relationship regarding defense, security, economy, but as well culture. Because I think the cornerstone relation between our two countries, the key issue is how to preserve a permanent balance, inclusiveness, and a series of different balances to preserve our own identity. The second issue is precisely you. That's why I wanted to have this moment. I think we need more exchange between our people, more exchange between students, people involved in creation and so on. I'm very happy to have in this place today as well some of the winners of our Make Our Planet Great Again, and the minister organized this this contest, but some of you basically won this challenge and came to France to become a researcher. I want more students to come to France, and I'm happy as well to have in this place some of our young leaders, which are the starting points of this new relationship. Why? Because everything is about people. Even when leaders take bad decisions, everything is about people. And when you know the culture of the other, you have the specific link. And I have to say to Jean-Claude Carrière, who spent something like 11 years of his life to translate and adapt the Mahabharata and organized it in Avignon, beginning of the 1980s. I was with the Foreign Affairs Minister of India a few hours ago, and she told me, I have a great experience of France. I went to Avignon and I saw Mahabharata. I don't know if it's a great experience of France or India, but at least that's the best evidence of the role of people, specific link of an imagination. And that's why I'm very keen on having this kind of exchange, because we have something to share. You have something to bring to France, and French people have something to bring here, regarding taste, regarding culture, regarding imagination. And the more we can have this kind of exchange, the more we can preserve our people in the future of any bad decision. I don't want to be longer. Tamal, you told me a few months ago in Paris, now you have to come to France because he's one of the winners of the MOBGA challenge. So I'm here, and here to discuss with you. So the floor is you.
So, Monsieur le Président, we'll start with the questions,
Sure.
if you like. How many of you come from schools rather than universities? Please raise your hands. I think we could start a question with somebody who's really amongst the youngest, and we'll take it from this side. I see the person in blue. Would you like to ask a question?
Yes, thank you. Mr. President, it's an honor to meet you today. My question to you is that what message would you like to give to the young generation which is responsible for shaping up the future in the coming years? Thank you.
Wow. No less than that. Look, I mean, first of all, not to be overwhelmed by such a burden. I mean, live your life and go to school. And I think, first of all, and we will probably revert to that, but have the best possible education. Learn and learn. Go to school, go to universities. I think it's absolutely critical. That's for me one of the main battles in this current environment. The less educated you are, the less opportunities you have. So go to school, learn, and better understand the current complexity of our environment, because everything is more and more complex. The second point I would make for your generation is not to consider that everything is fixed at 20 or 25. It's even, I mean, it's true for my generation, it's probably more true for your generation. The speediness of changes, of new challenges emerging, is very high. So your education is just a starting point to have more autonomy to learn more and learn again in different fields. And you will learn all along your life. That's a critical point. The third thing, and I think it's very important, especially when you are young, but we should think like that, for me, even we are old. Think about long term. I think most of the issues we have today, regarding climate, regarding terrorism and so on, are due to the fact that a lot of leaders and a lot of people, especially in political and economic fields, were very short-term driven. They were greedy, they wanted to accumulate power, they didn't think one thing about the kind of frustrations they can raise on the other side. So think about long-term perspective, because you will share this world for the long run, given your age. And fourth, always think, and that's linked to the complexity, that if you want a sustainable world, you need to build balances, new balances. And my advice for your generation is not automatically to win. I mean, do your best, try to deliver and get results and so on. But always think about the balances you can create or preserve, the place you can provide to the others, and the balance you need to preserve your country, but as well the region and the global environment. That's, in a nutshell, a few advice I can provide.
Thank you. I think we could take a question from this side. Are there any hands going up? Lots of hands. I can see there's a hand there. Maybe Jatinder, you could give the microphone there.
Good afternoon, Honorable President. My name is Anand, and I'm a second-year MBA student from IMA. My question is, how is the French government preparing itself for the next industrial revolution, which will witness a rise in artificial intelligence and its applications? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are in the middle of an ongoing revolution with digital and climate change. That's two revolutions at the same time, but which are changing in depth. The way to produce, the way to consume, the way to connect to each other. Your behavior is very different from the behavior of students 10 years ago, for sure. You have new devices, new behaviors, and that's something we have to take into consideration because it's changing very rapidly and drastically our own organization. In order to do so, what we want to do, and what we are doing, is first of all to change the mindset, I would say, and the culture. We have a lot of great corporates in France. In Europe, we are number one in terms of large caps. We need more and more entrepreneurs, and we need more speediness. Now, this year, we are number one in continental Europe in terms of startup creations. We have to increase that and help them to progress very rapidly. But the best way to address this huge change is to change the mindset and, especially for France, facilitate entrepreneurship. And as I often told it, I think that one of the first issues is to increase risk-takers' numbers and decrease cost of failure. That's absolutely critical. Because in the current environment, I'm not in a situation to say where this world is going. I have a few ideas. We have a few ideas about the critical innovations. We know that if you deliver on energy storage, that's a big innovation because it's how to completely change your model and make renewables substitutable to nuclear energy or coal plants. You know that the day you have strong innovation in artificial intelligence for health and so on, that's a big game changer. But it's very hard to predict from the government point of view. It will be led from the ground, by researchers, entrepreneurs, and so on. And you need a new cultural mindset, which is growing in France. We are a country of inventors, creators, and entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur is a French word, I often say. And that's why we need more and more people trying sometimes failing and trying again. And that's a huge change in terms of mindset, because during the past decades, the normal model was to succeed. And in France, it was forbidden to fail and forbidden to succeed too much. So now you have just to push people to try, sometimes to fail, to try again and to succeed. That's absolutely critical in terms of mindset. Second, we will invest more and more money in fundamental research, and the minister is here, on, I would say, the basis of this kind of innovation. You need to invest in fundamental mathematics. You need to be very strong in biotech. You need to be, and in bio more largely. You need to be very strong on some fundamental research program if you want to be innovative. Not 100% should be focused on, the more dedicated and on-purpose research. Third, what we want to develop is the adapted ecosystem in order to be part of this battle for artificial intelligence, because you fairly said it's one of the critical battles. When I look at the global situation today, you have two potential leaders, US and China. US, this artificial intelligence fight is led by private players, Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and some others. And it's totally privately driven and privately held, which according to me is a big mistake, because it deals with privacy, with, in a certain way, a choice of society, because it will impact your day-to-day life, your intimacy, and so on. And these guys will decide for you. In China, it's 100% state-driven, government-driven. You have private leaders, but all the data are controlled and monitored by the government, which is, for me, not the society I decided to live in, but which will provide a poor fire to China, absolutely huge in terms of artificial intelligence. In Europe, we have to design our own model. And that's why I think one of the critical items will be to better organize our research, and that's why I push very much this sort of DARPA innovation in Europe, i.e. to invest much more in research, and especially on artificial intelligence at the European level. And you have here a lot of players in this field. Second, to create an actual single digital market, which is key if you want to have leaders in artificial intelligence. And third, build your own regulation. Because you have to decide the use of data you accept. If I take your data through the mobile, through one app or another, I want to be clear vis-à-vis yourself about the use of this data. Will I share this data with somebody else? Will I use this data to change your life and provide new opportunities? Do you accept it or not? We have to be clear and know where to do. Is very clear about these issues. So that's pretty much the strategy we have. Mindset, fundamental research, and new organization at the European scale. But I think we have a lot of things to do in this battle. Frédéric, vous voulez rajouter quelque chose?
We will take a question there. Pratha, is there a question close to you? Yes.
Hello. Good evening, President. First of all, welcome to India, and thank you for having your valuable time spending with us. Myself, I briefly introduce myself. I studied in France, and I came back to India 2.5 years ago and started working here. So in order to make, as you said, to make our planet great again, how does the government of France support or extend its support to the developing countries like India or China?
Thanks very much. First of all, I think that's an actual global challenge. Make our planet great again is just to say, look at the situation where we are about climate change. We have to deal with that. That's our own interest, and obviously that's the interest of a lot of emerging and developing countries as well. But that's a very top priority. And that's how to change the way to produce and our own business models. It's not just to correct at the margin the business model, but it's how to produce, to invest totally differently, to be sure that we preserve this perspective. So first of all, we worked very hard to preserve the Paris Agreement framework. That's a global framework that's just about treaties and international right, but it's very important because it creates constraints. Thanks to a lot of countries, we managed, after the US decision to leave, to preserve the Paris Agreement. We want to increase that with a new agreement, with a global pact for environment, that we want to pass at the UN by 2020, which will give new rights to people. Because the best way to create incentives is to provide rights regarding environment to people. Like that, people can go against a company or a government saying, you are not compliant with your own commitment. Third, we want in our development policy to invest on climate change. I have two priorities, two top priorities, education and climate change. Which means that most of the projects we have, all the projects we have abroad, are compliant with our strategy. I don't finance coal plants. I stopped financing coal plants in Africa, for instance, because even it seemed good, I mean, at the first sight, for my business and sometimes for their country, it's absolutely inconsistent with the overall strategy. So now we finance. A few weeks ago, I opened in Burkina Faso a solar plant that we financed. And that's what we will do. In our financing, we focus on renewables, on new grids, and new mobility, and so on. And our involvement in India, for instance, is totally dedicated in this direction. And a large majority of the overall financing of our Agency for Development is focused on precisely renewables and sustainability towards these countries. Third, we took some very strong decisions, and that's the core of the initiative we take with Prime Minister Modi, with Solar Alliance initiative. And the conference tomorrow will gather a large part of African and island countries. They will be present, but we have more than 100 countries being part of this agreement, plus the financing. And what we want to do is to focus this financing on solar energy. Why? Because that's the best way to create on the ground new opportunities to produce energy, which is essential in Africa, because when you produce energy, you produce light. It means that you provide education to people, and especially women. You produce opportunities to go together to create economic activities and so on. And producing this energy through solar panels and solar initiative is the best way to have this energy being produced on the ground, providing opportunities to the people directly, and being compliant with climate change. Fourth point, vis-à-vis a lot of emerging countries, is to provide innovation to these countries. That's why MOBGA, and Tanel is part of this initiative, is so important. Is how to disrupt a lot of markets and a lot of way to produce in this field. And because this disruption, these innovations will decrease costs like crazy. And this fight for innovation in this field is good for development and emerging countries. Because today, a solar plant in total is less expensive than a coal plant in Africa for a country. And thanks to the innovation in mobility and so on, we can decrease the costs, and we can provide much more rapidly these innovations to the emerging countries. That's the strategy on that. Tamal, do you want to, if you want to elaborate on that, because he's a researcher in this field and he decided to come from India to France.
Hello. First of all, good evening, Honorable President. So regarding this MOBGA plan, I can add 2 or 3 points. First of all, it's a great initiative taken by our Honorable President, and I came to know last year, July or August. Then I subsequently applied for this plan, and I should suggest you guys also to search in net about this program, and there are a lot of scopes you can explore yourselves or your idea regarding this under this plan. But the best part of under this Make Our Planet Great Again is the going for renewable energy, going for the sustainable world. So when you think from a 30 or 40 years later for our future generation, that's the plan we should look for, because it's already we are more or less dependent on fossil fuels, or as President mentioned about the coal plants, all others, which contributes lot of carbon dioxide and other kind of greenhouse gas effect. The results are climate change, global warming. I think we all are aware of these problems. But you can get aware of all these problems if you go for the original source of energy, that's the sun. So under this program, I think it's a good initiative, and under this kind of program, it attracts a lot of new researchers to come and do the research and explore their ideas and makes our planet great again, and we could offer a better planet for our future generations. And I like that part of this program, and that's why I am in this. And thanks to again to President for starting up this kind of great program. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.